Hey everyone, welcome to season 3. We made it a whole 3 seasons and 67 episodes. This is our 67th one, so it's going to be exciting. Season 3, Support Ops Hangout, you know that since you're here. I'm your host, Chase Clemens, and tonight, so Chase Livingston's out for the first episode of our season. He said not to have too much fun without him, so we're going to try to rein that in and do our best about that. But we do have the ever awesome Carolyn from Buffer. How's your New Year off to?
It was great. I moved over the break. I'm still in San Francisco, but I took over Joel's apartment and lease because he was traveling. So works for everybody. Yay.
So I feel like we need like the little "Move It On Up" soundtrack right there.
Totally.
And then the also ever awesome Jeff from over at Wistia. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. It's great to be back in this new year. I'm super excited. Same spot. Yes, I'm in the same spot, but new year.
Yeah, and for our audio listeners for the podcast, if you hear that rustling, that is Sherman. Also, the ever amazing Sherman.
My dog is in an excited mood today.
So, Jeff, are you excited about Boston gonna be hosting the Olympics or making a bid for it at least?
No, not at all. We don't have a good history with major construction projects, and it sounds like that's what's involved with having an Olympics. So
just a little, yeah.
I'm hoping that it goes to a place that has lots of room and an economy that needs that help. Boston, we're all set without it, but don't take my word for it because I don't know what I'm talking about.
I love that. From Boston, it's like, thanks, but no thanks.
That's how I feel about it, exactly.
Oh, all right. So let's kick off this episode. We're focused on one question for it. I figured it was a good way to start the 2015 year, the new season, all that kind of fun stuff. You know, at the end of a year, you tend to get like wrap-up posts and look at what we did last year and that kind of thing. And then the start of a year usually brings the let's make goals and resolutions and all that kind of fun stuff. So this show, we're focused on just one support goal. We're not going to make it complicated or anything like that, but one support goal that each of us is going to be focused on for 2015, and then we'll talk about why on that one. So yeah, which one of you wants to go first on this one?
I'll go. Sure.
All right. So what's your big support goal that you're going to be focusing on?
I think Carolyn muted herself as a way to let me know that it was my turn to go first.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that she did the not it game with touching the nose and all that.
I was just coughing.
So I spent a little bit of time thinking about this one because we're in the middle of setting goals as a company. The thing that I can't get away from is talking about more than one. I can't get it down to just one because they're so interconnected.
All right, we'll give you three max.
Okay, I got two.
That'll work. We're good.
That I'm okay with talking about. The first one is hiring related. We'd like to hire a bunch of awesome new champs this year. The goal is probably a little bit more quantified than that, but for all intents and purposes, let's just say a bunch. And it's related to our second goal, which is in terms of inbox, our collective inbox performance. We'd like to get all replies during business hours to under 1 hour. And right now, that's not in the realm of, okay, everybody works super hard and stop taking coffee breaks. That's not right. We're not on the border of that. So it is definitely a stretch for us for this year.
Okay, so why is that sub 1 hour response time kind of thing? Why is that a big? Because it kind of feels like when you describe that, you know, you're saying you're not really close enough to make a big push for it, but if you hire on a bunch of other people, then you're going to be good. And that's a big thing. Hiring's a huge thing for a team. So why is that sub one hour such a big focus for y'all this year?
Well, that's probably a long discussion. I'll try to boil it down, but it probably starts with the jerks from Basecamp who published a post about how fast they are. Good for you, Basecamp. What a good job.
Remind me on that, and I'll give you a little background on that one too. So
no, that actually it didn't really have much to do with the goal, but we were certainly curious to how Basecamp was accomplishing it once we heard about that. So, okay, where to begin? We provide in the research that I've done, Wistia technical support is more technical than any other product that I've found. And I give our champs a ton of credit for the work that they're doing. But that type of technical support requires, well, I mean, support in general requires a ton of context switching, but that type of technical support requires an incredible amount of context switching, where you're like knee deep in this JavaScript issue, like trying to figure out why someone's page isn't behaving the way they want it to, and then the next conversation is like, hey, I just want some high-level comments on what Wistia does. Like, can you kind of fill me in? And it's like people can't. It's very difficult to do that in an excellent way. And so we've started thinking about going down this path of more specialization. I think Carolyn could probably tell us all about how we should be doing more of that, because I know the buffer team was doing some of that earlier. In order to accomplish that specialization, which we think would lead to better responses and also faster responses, we would need more people. The other part of that is, for the last couple of years, well, okay, so there are 3 parts. This is number 2. Let's see if I can actually remember number 3 when I get there. But for the last couple of years, the whole team has really been after this idea of, if there's an issue that should never be coming up, we should solve it. And we're getting increasingly better at that. And I think we're building the sort of formal processes in the machine around, here's an issue, here's how we define the issue, here's who can help us fix the issue, issues fixed, right? And I don't think we're ever going to get rid of all the problems that should never come up, but we're nearing the place where what we're looking at is the type of support we're going to have to do into the future, or at least something like it, right? And that to me tells me that it's time. Like the additional customers that we gain today are going to push us into needing more champs. Like we've whittled it to the point where what we're looking at in the inbox is what Wistia general support looks like. So that's number 2. Is just that we've done a lot of whittling, and we've got something really cool that we're looking at, and now it's time to anything beyond that is going to require more people. That's part 2. Part 3 is, when you're really early days and the people who are using your app are a very early adopters, I guess, for lack of a better term, response rate, it's important, but it's not nearly as important as getting it right. And a lot of the support in those early days is research-based. It's like, wow, I have no idea what that is. I've never seen that before, and no one else on the team has either. It's going to take us a little while to figure out what the heck is going on. But once you start to approach that next wave of people, the people who it's like, my friend who tries all the new gadgets recommended this to me, but I got to tell you, I'm a Luddite. I know nothing about this. This better work. Those folks are way more focused on, well, so first of all, the issues that they unearth tend to be a lot more pedestrian, for lack of a better term, but also they're way more focused on response times than that first wave is. And if we want to make a really good impression on that group of folks, we need to be ready. And it just, at some point, response time comes down to the number of people who have a keyboard in front of them and who are focused on making a great support experience. So, I mean, it's by no means, waving the white flag and saying like, well, there's no more, there's no more improvements to go after in the customer experience, and now it's just about, response times. But it's that response times are a proxy for how staffed we are to handle the issues that we're seeing. And I think right now we would say we're understaffed pretty drastically. And it's a very exciting opportunity, like just a challenge to undertake to bring on a ton of new people. But I think we're ready for it too.
Yeah, and you gave us a little bit of grief since we're down to like 2 and 3 minute reply times and all that. Looking at our customer base, our customers tend to be those, you call them pedestrian kind of questions. Those, how do I do this? How do I do that? The people that, we've gotten help articles out there for that, but they bypass them because they're in a hurry and know that we're going to get back in a couple of minutes. a lot of times it's quicker for you to email us about a question than it is to go searching for it in the help docs, just because of the time and that kind of thing. So yeah, ours tend to be pretty easy answers for our customers, which helps us get down to those quick reply times. When you're looking at technical questions like Wistia has, I usually think of like customer I/O when I talk about reply times. Like their reply times is going to be drastically different than our reply times, just because of the nature of the questions that come across. So a lot of times, this is the end of the year, beginning of the year. You're going to see lots of articles out there about, oh, we got down to sub 1 hour, sub 6 hours, sub 30 minutes, whatever. That's for that team. So don't get, for all of our listeners, don't feel like you get sucked into having to match our times, because your questions might be a lot different than ours. Your cases and customers might be a lot different than ours.
I completely agree. I think there's a ton of variables that go into that. And what we thought about was, where do we think the level of lowered returns starts coming in? Like how fast do we think the responses should be to maximize happiness without starting to get into that, like, well, you'd have to add like 4 people across the world to improve the response time at all. And that level for us is around an hour, looking at the data we have now.
Yeah, it comes down to, going from 6 hours to an hour, huge gains to be had. Going from an hour to 30 minutes, huge gains to be had. Not quite as much as 6 to 1, but still there. When you're talking, we're at 10 minutes, let's cut it in half to 5, but to get to 5, we'd hire on 2 more people. Probably not the best use of resources there. I think Caroline was going to say something, yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to comment. I was just chatting with Alex from Udemy, who he's on the support team there, and he said that they really tested this really carefully and closely, and what they found was that like there's almost no difference between over an hour. If it's like 6 hours or 24 hours, like whatever, the people have to go do something else and then come back before they get a response anyway. The difference between 6 hours and 1 hour was huge. People got a lot happier, consistently, directly related to the amount of time. And then and all the way up to like 10 minutes, and then once they fell below 10 minutes, people started to get less happy because they were assuming that the responses were robots. And like they realized that, like, no way did you type this whole thing to me. This is just like a snippet that you just stuck in here. Like, that doesn't make me feel special. And so like they actually had happier customers at like 11, 12, 13, 14 minutes than like 2, 3, 4, which I thought was fascinating.
I think that's a super interesting study. I think you're probably right. I think it's like 24 to 6 or whatever, and then 6 down to like 1 hour, right? It's probably a huge jump, because then you're talking a business day, right? So you send in I think it's completely normal that you send in a support request and you're kind of like, okay, I'm just sending a request. It's going to be a little while till I hear back. Like, I'm going to switch and do something else for a little bit. And then whatever that window is where you're kind of like in the zone on that other thing, and then you're like, oh, I wonder if they've written back to me, and you check. If you're there at that moment, and I can't tell you exactly what that time is, but I'm ballparking in it, at like the windows are like 25 minutes and then like 45 minutes to an hour. If you could be there, they're going to say, wow, look at that. Like, there it is, like totally there. If you're, whatever, 6 hours to 12 hours, then that's a whole business day loss. So that we're certainly really well aware of the fact that that would stink for us. We would be really upset about that if it was us, and we want to make it better for our customers. So that's the goal for this year.
Yeah, and it's also going to come into, God, we could have like a whole show about this, and I might schedule it later on down the road. It comes down to types of cases too. A login case, if you can't log into an app, you need like 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute reply times. If you've got, how to, is Wistia going to be good for this scenario? Is Basecamp going to be good for this situation? Is Buffer going to work for me in this case? When talking about those, an hour, couple hours, that would probably be fine. So
Yep.
just kind of keep that all in mind as we're talking about, don't feel pressure from us to run out and hire 5 new people just so you can get below an hour response time. You don't have to do that.
The other thing, I guess this is kind of like a tangent on what you just said, Chase, is that one thing I wish we had done earlier, and it kind of took us, we've only been doing it seriously for the last probably year and a half, is to tag really aggressively. We were really worried about tag soup, so we would have these really huge buckets of tags. But you know what? It doesn't help you unearth like what's actually going on. If you can say a huge percentage of our requests are billing requests, then you could theoretically assign one person just to billing, and the efficiency gains that they get from being focused on that all the time could also really have an impact on your response times.
It's really hard to focus on what you're saying right now.
He just hit me so hard in the chin with his nose. That did not feel good.
I will say you should, if you're listening to the podcast audio version, the audio version of this, you should at least like pop in around minute 15, 30, 16 minutes into the show on the YouTube version, just so you can see Sherman just headbutt into Jeff. It's great.
And that thumping is his tail, I assume.
Oh, can you hear the thumping? Oh, I'm sorry. Hang on, I'll mute myself. Buddy, relax.
Oh, that's fantastic. All right, so that's what Jeff and the Wistia crew are looking at for this year. Carolyn, what's your big thing with Buffer? What's your one big goal?
Yeah, so everything at Buffer is changing. We are sort of moving toward a holacracy-based model, and sort of the big effort is to it's like a bigger concept, but sort of a tangible description that I can give as an example of the real change that's happening is, for example, we don't have job titles and we don't have teams anymore. So we're still kind of in the process of getting there, but what that means is that we no longer have people who are only doing support and not doing anything else, and we no longer have officially a team of people who is just in charge of support. So what that means for 2015 is sort of decentralizing our customer service and turning it more into a series of task forces of people who feel excited about doing customer service in whatever form they have, in whatever skill set they have, for as long as it feels exciting to them. So that means that the people who were doing customer service are probably still going to spend a lot of time doing that, but they also get involved in other things, which they already were, but they kind of did it last, and they kind of did it around the inbox and often did it in their free time, to be honest. And it means that the people who weren't doing customer service before and maybe felt this big barrier to jumping in because we had so much process and you have to tag everything this way, which we're still doing, by the way, agree on tags. You have to file a bug in this way and this is how, and you have to have all the knowledge of every previous bug we've ever had, especially the recent ones in your head, otherwise you might give the wrong answer. Like there was this huge wall between the customer service team and everybody else because we just have so much knowledge in our heads about what's been going on today, this week, this year. So our task is to decentralize all of that knowledge and be a lot more inviting to anybody who wants to participate in customer service, which is basically the whole Buffer team in some form. Although, our engineers really love to jump in and start helping people, but my experience is that then they really love to go fix that thing if there's one customer who has one issue excuse me, that they think they can fix. Then that tends to be the most fun path for them. Sorry, I'm going to mute myself and clear my throat one more time. Excuse me.
Yeah, so when you're looking at that holocratic model, that power distributing out through everyone on the team, no managers, that kind of thing, were you, and we've talked a little bit off the show about how we're going to designate just a whole show for this later on, a couple months when everything kind of fleshes out. But kind of going into it, were you scared in any way? I mean, because you're right that you've got this group of support reps that know the support questions, know the customers inside and out, and now that becomes a lot more fluid. Like, were you
Yeah.
scared or hesitant or anything going into that?
Yeah, I was and I am. It's been working out really well. A lot of it comes down to trusting that the people who were previously doing it will make sure that, like, including me, like, I mean, we're not going to let, just because like suddenly we don't have this responsibility anymore or something, like, we're not going to let customer service go to the weeds. So yeah, I think I was just a little bit afraid that there wouldn't be a ton of change, and so far that's proven to be true. Mostly the people who were doing customer service before are doing it now, and the people who weren't still aren't. So I think that was my biggest fear, and so far that's sort of been validated, but we have a lot of time to continue to sort of, I thought that maybe it would be this big, like, okay, now we flip the switch and everything changes, and that was really naive of me. Now I realize that we'll have probably a lot of little changes to make, and even so much as just reminding people that they're welcome to jump in and answer 5 tweets if they feel like it. Yeah, I think in terms of the knowledge, I do have a little bit of awareness that may increase, but like, I mean, I've even written a blog post about this before, that like I am in all those meetings and I still get the answer wrong kind of a lot. Like, either I just didn't know that was a bug yet, or I forgot, or I didn't realize that it was that specific thing, or whatever it is that caused me to not get it exactly right. Like, that will still happen, and that's not really gonna be new.
Awesome. That's one of those where I think 2015 is going to be really fun, because we're going to be able to watch Buffer undergo this change, because you're so openly transparent. It's pretty fantastic. So I'm going to put in the show notes to Leo's article. About Leo's article about how he's kind of reacting to these changes so far, just so you can get it from his perspective too. Pretty much lines up with Carolyn. Jeff, yeah.
Can you restate the goal one more time, Carolyn? What's the goal?
Yeah, I mean, I use the word decentralize. I don't know if that's the perfect description for it, but yeah, basically breaking down the barrier of we are this team and we do customer service just by ourselves, and we follow the processes that we've built over the last year, and like peeling off those processes and sort of inviting a lot more people in, and maybe completely changing the way customer service looks at Buffer down the road. I don't know exactly how much will change, but I have a feeling it will be a lot, and it'll probably gain momentum. Like, right now, nothing's changing because we're just so used to it, but as soon as things start to change and it works and we realize that it's okay, I think it'll happen even faster.
So, sorry, one question. Chase might have asked this, but I didn't really catch it, what the response was. Like, so let's say let's say you wake up like tomorrow morning and there's however many emails in the Buffer inbox. Like, what happens?
Yeah, so what happens is that so from my perspective, I trust that. So one of the big themes of Reinventing Organizations, which is the book that sort of inspired all of this change, is that you sort of have to trust that what needs to get done in an organization will get done, and that's putting a lot of trust in your coworkers, obviously, because officially any one individual could say, "Oh, that's not my job anymore. I don't feel like doing that," but that doesn't really work for the organization, and that's not really, if you know that that's what needs to get done today and you don't do it, then you're sort of allowing the organization to be hurt by that decision. And so it's just a lot of trust that people will do what's best for the team and for the customer and all of that stuff. And so far, I mean, that's happening. Like, there hasn't, I mean, our support has, we've officially dropped our time goals as well, because that's a separate conversation. The goals aren't really part of the teal model of the new style of organization. But so it maybe has adjusted a little bit, but for the most part, we're seeing, people are still getting really personal, thoughtful responses from the people who are doing that right now, which is basically the whole team that was doing it before.
Wait, say that one more time.
Did I answer the last?
Yeah,
last
just
thing?
the last part. So like what's changed about the happiness? Because like, okay, what you said makes total sense to me, and I don't want to like divert the whole conversation that we're just having right now about goals and stuff, but like uh uh it makes total sense to say what needs to get done today will get done. I think the thing that makes this show worth doing, and the thing that makes support so tough and unique, is that there is a faucet you can never turn off. Right now, there's a buffer customer that is emailing or tweeting or whatever, cursing the name buffer because something doesn't work the way that they expect it to, and it's not something that I guess I'm confused as to like how I'm not saying the job responsibilities are the only reason why people do this job, right? It's not like they come in and they're like, well, I really wish I could be doing this other thing, but like I have to do this because it's what my job says. But
Right.
there are certainly days, right, where it's like, you know what? I didn't cause this problem. The last thing I want to do is deal with this problem. Like, I want to get out of work early and like go have dinner with my significant other or whatever. And I'm wondering how Frederick's book recommends that you tackle that problem. Like, maybe everything's all good on the buffer front right now, but what about like when something breaks tomorrow?
Yeah, you're not wrong. So I'm just trying to like organize my thoughts around all of this. So people always did that before, right? Like, for example, we have customers on Mondays from 3:30 to 4:30 who need answers and they're waiting, but I have chosen to prioritize this podcast as something that I do and that I'm willing to say, like, the value that either I as an employee or Buffer as a whole gets out of me doing this activity is worth me removing myself from the inbox for that hour, right? So Dave has been working on learning how iOS QA works, right? Like, so they always had side projects, and they also we always had personal lives as well. So asking people to sort of manage that is not new. That's kind of my first reaction to it, is that I don't know that anything's actually different. The second reaction, or the second piece of that, is that, we haven't encountered that, but certainly as we grow and as we bring more people on board and, just as the laws of probability dictate, at some point it'll happen that like maybe somebody decides to take advantage of the situation, right? And in that case, there's just a really clear point in the book about one of the most important things about moving into this organization style is a really clear and honest feedback loop from as many different directions as necessary, preferably everyone to everyone. So there's a lot of peer pressure and feedback and that kind of thing if you do start to just blow off work, right? Like, if you want to have dinner with your significant other because you've had it up to here and you didn't cause this problem and like you just need to get out of the inbox, then like you should definitely trust your instinct on that. If you decide to like only work 30 hours a week, then like there will be consequences to that, just like there were before. I don't know if I'm getting at it completely, but does that sort of? Oh, you're muted.
It's fine, and it's fine if you don't get to it. It's because it's totally fine if you haven't experienced it yet. I just there's that fundamental tension of trying something new, which is like we don't really know if it's going to work, right?
Right.
But at the same time, what makes us more confident about whether it's going to work is like walking through and talking through some of the toughest scenarios that we face. And so what I'm thinking about is the fact that like Wistia has we've done some things that are like huge, like turns from where we are right now, but in terms of just saying like this entire model, let's just blow it up and just not do any of that. I'm not sure that we've ever done anything like that, and I'm not sure that it would get past the point of being like, hey, what do you think about this? Like, should we do it? And it's like, well, what are the what are the clear benefits? It's like, we don't have to remember people's titles anymore. And it's like, yes, go for it. I think it'd be pretty. I think we'd have a hard time getting past the argument for why this is better for our customers. But I also know, having watched that entire super long talk, that
You did?
of course I did. I sat through that entire thing, and it's like there are people who have had far better, care from like these nurses in like Sweden because of this model. So I'm not, I have nothing against it. I think it sounds interesting. I think that it just feels like one of those things that rubber meets road. Things don't necessarily change, and it's one of the things I, as a leader, am like the most afraid about, putting a staff in the ground and being like, we're maybe kind of changing things. I'm actually really not sure. So I just wanted to ask, because I think we've fallen short in this regard. So it's interesting to hear how a different company handles it.
Yeah, I would be very excited to talk about the advantages besides not having to remember people's titles, which is definitely a factor. But I don't want to derail us too much. Maybe if we are I don't want to make this all about Buffer too. This is more about support goals and changes and big goals for 2015. But
yeah,
I would love to have that conversation.
We've got a whole episode that I've got planned, because it's, you see Buffer at this, I don't want to call it like an extreme edge, blowing up the model, that kind of thing. But it's very different than what a lot of tech companies are doing right now. For us here at Basecamp, we're kind of there. One of the books that a lot of us have read over the past month or so is Turn the Ship Around. I don't know if you have read that one, but it talks about how this captain of a naval submarine makes sure to invest decision-making powers down throughout the ranks. So, somebody comes to him and says, hey, Captain, we've got this problem. He doesn't give an answer. He says, well, what would you do in that case? And then that, it gradually builds up everyone on your team, and that way you don't have to have one person that every decision is running past. So we do that a little bit at Basecamp. Not blow the model up like Buffer's doing, but I think we can have a good show about that down the road a little bit.
His, I can't remember his name, but his TED Talk, the Turn the Ship Around guy, TED Talk, is incredible. I don't know if we can get that in the show notes. I don't have a shout-out, so I may use that as a shout-out.
For you, I'll put anything in the show notes.
Yeah, because the show notes is where people get their access to information.
I hear sarcasm in your voice, just a little.
No. 2015, no sarcasm.
Oh, all right. So before the show runs too long, since we're already at the 30-minute mark here, I'm just going to throw mine out. It's pretty simple. We haven't sat down as a team yet and figured out big support goals for this year or anything like that. We accomplished a lot of what we set out to do last year with the 24/7 support, trying the phone support. I'll put that article in the show notes, since it's a fabulous link to resources that people need to read. So I'll have that in there so you can kind of read about that. But I think, at least for me, for this year, I really want to explore more of the high touch kind of stuff with our customers. We've done a little bit of that in the past couple of months, but I'm kind of ready to ramp up on that a little bit. And when I say high touch, it's when somebody contacts us and says, hey, do you do demos, or do you do individual training sessions and things like that? I've been trying to get into a habit of saying yes more often than no, just because somebody that's actively seeking out information on your product, somebody that's going to sit with you for like a 30-minute or an hour training session, is probably somebody that's going to become a customer. So it's definitely worth at least exploring that a little bit. So that's my short little snippet for what I'm going to be doing this year.
Yeah, that's another thing that once you hit that scale, once you hit that size, it makes a lot of sense. I think a number of the people who are listening, who are their one-person support team, they're like,
don't.
I'm
Nope.
shaking my head for the audio listeners.
Yeah, that's one of those. 2 years ago, we wouldn't have been able to try anything like that. 2 years ago, I was answering emails all day, for 40 hours a week, and even then, we were still looking at 1 hour, 2 hour response times. Now that we've expanded the team to 10 people, we can start diving more into those side projects and doing it. I think Carolyn had a good point about this earlier. Doing it inside of work hours, not letting it take over hours outside of work, just so you can try something new, which I'm a big believer in. Again, a whole nother show on that one, which is good because blank slate. This is the only topic I had for this year, other than the buffer show about the reorganization and all that. So, all right. Anything else you want to throw in? No. All right. Cool.
Let's hear some
we're moving
community
on.
goals.
Some what goals?
Some community goals. I want to hear what some other people's goals are. Like, hopefully people will like email in or tweet or whatever it is that they use out there.
Me too.
Snapchat.
Yeah, people can Snapchat me. I don't know how to log into my Snapchat, but I think my user is Focaccia Poncho.
Oh, so yeah, like you mentioned, let us know. supportops.co/contact is where you're going to get over to us so you can tell us what your goals are with you and with your support team for 2015. You can hit us up on Twitter if you want. All of our tweets and everything else, our Twitter handle. That's the word I'm looking for. Twitter handles are in the show notes because, again, the show notes are a fantastic resource that I highly encourage you peruse at your leisure.
It's focaccia like the bread, and then poncho like the rain jacket. Again, I have no idea how to log in, so I won't get your Snap.
I'm pretty sure I've sent you a Snapchat.
Never received. I don't know how to log in.
I'm Carol Cop. Add me on Snapchat.
Yeah.
A lot of pictures of the Bay Bridge, sorry.
So that brings us to my favorite part of each and every show with these goofballs.
Oh, crap.
He had so much time to practice that while we were off in between seasons. What happened? Nothing. Oh, so that brings us, this is the shout-outs. These are the things that are making us happy, so happy that we want to shout them out from the rooftops and the mountaintops to let you know that you should be doing this thing, reading this thing, watching whatever verb you want to use there. We'll start with Jeff because I'm pretty sure Jeff's just going to like hijack the one I mentioned, right?
No, I'm not. I have a book right here. Oh, God. Okay.
Okay, I'll go.
Yeah, go on, Carolyn.
Please go, Carolyn.
So mine is also a book, but I don't think it's going to be the same one, I promise. But over the break, my sister, who works in publishing, recommended this book sort of casually called The Martian, which was released.
The Martian.
Yeah, it was released like by the author for free like a while back, and then a publisher read it randomly and was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. And I guess sort of made it slightly more professional or whatever they do. And it is so captivating. I recommend not starting it until you have like 24 hours before you have to do anything else, unless you have more self-control than I do, in which case start it whenever you want. But it is super entertaining. It's about this mission to Mars that is successful. They make it there, and then like what happens to this one guy who ends up staying there a little longer than planned. Super entertaining.
I love the way how you gave that teaser. That's exactly how they would do it in the movie preview that they're making too. So he just stays a little longer than planned.
Okay, I guess I'll go now. Now that I have Sherman wrangled. I just finished reading this book over the break. Let's see if it'll show up. It's a book called Self-Esteem at Work by Nathaniel Branden, and I've been on this whole kick recently. It's actually kind of related to the reinventing organizations thing, which is when you have a team of people with strong self-esteem, everything changes, right? Because you can trust each other and you can bring your real selves to work, which is something that they really harp on in this reinventing organizations thing. And the work is just far better because you're not in that mode where you're like protecting yourself. So you're afraid to like put your real self out there, your real work out there. And the argument that the book makes, so really interesting. This book was written in, so I'm reading this book and I'm like, oh wow, this is totally applicable to today's work. Like, I wonder when this was written. I believe this book was written in 1998. So this book was written a really long time ago, but it's dead on to the way that that sort of creative, knowledge-based work is getting done today. And yeah, I highly recommend that anyone who's trying to lead a group of people or mentor a group of people, check it out. It's a fairly quick read, but very, very engaging.
Awesome. And then for mine, holidays, I tend to be evidently like Carolyn. I read fiction a lot, just as a break. And one of the other ones that I picked up was Station 11. If you haven't read that one yet, highly recommended. Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. It's, you know, it is a post-apocalyptic kind of story. It is one of those where, like, you know, the flu has wiped out a lot of civilization, and now we're looking at the survivors, that kind of thing. But the way that she weaves this story between three different characters and three different times around when that apocalypse happens is really interesting, really creative, and just her way with words. I mean, she's such a master at the English language that you would be reading through a paragraph and I would just stop and reread it because it was just so wonderfully written and poetic and it's, again, just wonderful. So go out and read it. Station 11 is the one that you want. So we'll have that along with all the other ones in the show notes. You can see those, supportops.co. It's going to have those and then all the Twitter things that we mentioned about, all the books and links and everything else is all going to be there. Make sure to drop us a line, supportops.co/contact, and that will get you over to where you can tell us what your goals are for 2015, what your support team is going to be working on to make it a better year than last year for your customers. We'll be back next week, same time, same channel, all that kind of fun stuff. So until we see you then, have an awesome week.